Yeah, thank you, Penny. And hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today on this bright, sunny Thursday morning. My name is Josh Bendorf. I work as the Precision Ag and Conservation Specialist with Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever. I work out of the Juneau office in Dodge County. Today, we're just going to be talking with you a little bit about what our team here in Wisconsin does. And hopefully you guys leave today with a better idea of who we are as an organization and how we can work with you and your great work that you're doing as a conservation professional here in Wisconsin. So with that, I'll let my two coworkers, Jeff and Lauren, introduce themselves today, who are going to be presenting with me today. So Lauren, if you could introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Lauren Soergel, and I'm the Farm Bill Biologist based out of the Madison office, and I cover the southeast 9 counties of Wisconsin.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jeff Williams. I'm the Wetland Easement Biologist for Pheasants Forever. I work out of the Juneau NRCS office in Dodge County. I have a 16 county area, and that's all of southeast Wisconsin.
All right, so thanks, guys. So without further ado, let's get into our presentation today.
So I just wanted to give a little overview and history, kind of where we were back when we started and kind of where we are today, just in case you don't know much about Pheasants Forever. So on March 7th, 1982, Dennis Anderson published an article that led to the founding of Pheasants Forever. And from there, he started gaining ground with people that had like-minded interest to the loss of habitat. And so he started with his buddies. They wrote because it was called Rooster Tales, wrote a magazine, gave it out to members. A lot of people were interested. They ended up pulling a banquet in St. Paul that very next year. Gained a lot of ground. People outside the historic pheasant range of Minnesota down in Iowa, their pheasant range got interested in the group, joined. And then from there, it took off. Word spread. Pheasants Forever Canada in the Prairie Powerful region was formed in '92. From there, we realized all these people were volunteer and we needed more people to get the habitat on the ground that we were working for because we are the habitat organization. So we started working with state wildlife departments and NRCS partners, various partners on getting Farm Bill biologists. And so we started in 2003 launching a Farm Bill program, and over time we've expanded. And so with that, in 2005 we expanded down to the quail range, from bobwhite quail, California quail, mountain quail. So all the way out west, all the way down south, we have Farm Bill biologists that work on that. More than just that, we have a subsidy, the Habitat Forever. It's all part of Pheasants Forever. They work more with state departments. For example, in Missouri, it's real popular. We got a lot of those. And then here in Wisconsin, and we were fortunate enough in 2007 to begin our Farm Bill biologist positions. Started with 5, and from there we've grown. We actually have 12 now in Wisconsin. So we're very fortunate to continue to grow. Today, nationally, Pheasants Forever, it's a premier conservation organization. We have 145,000 individual members. It's over 740 chapters in the US and Canada. We employ 450 employees. Most of those are biologists. There's some administrative stuff, but it's all boots on the ground habitat work we're doing. And the future for this group is to continue what we have, and hopefully we can grow and better serve Wisconsin and the country and Canada. Next slide.
All right, so as you could tell from Jeff's little history lesson, chapters and the employees really are the foundation for Pheasants Forever. And as a nonprofit organization, we rely heavily on fundraisers, and so chapters are a big part of that, and so are the memberships. And so, of course, there are chapter banquets, raffling off guns and fishing trips and whatever else for the fundraising. But chapters also support 3 objectives that Pheasants Forever has outlined, and so-called R3, which stands for recruit, retain, and reactivate. And that's in reference to sportsmen and conservationists. So we're trying to recruit more members to try out hunting, join the hunting community and conservation, habitat work, and doing this with some different mentored hunts and other events. Retaining those members and those sportsmen and women by offering events and supportive resources such as hunting dog workshops and vet care, clay and range shooting, cooking demos, things of that sort. And of course, reactivating, kind of reigniting that enthusiasm of our members to keep everyone involved in Wisconsin. And so chapters help with all of these different goals. And as you can see, we have chapters all over the state, including 2 women's only chapters and 1 Quail Forever chapter in Dane County. But as all of you are natural resource professionals, I'd like you to think of chapters as a resource. Many of our chapters have equipment for rent and also different services that they can be contracted for. For example, some chapters offer prescribed burning crews, even cutting and treating invasive species. Some chapters have seed drills that can be rented out, and either a chapter member or one of the Pheasants Forever employees will come to the property and help that landowner get that seed drill all set up and ready to go. Also, Pheasants Forever does sell seed mixes, all kinds of different seed mixes, and chapters can buy those at a discounted rate and act as a local distributor. And so I'd like you to keep chapters in mind for these different services, but also as a nice community that you might point landowners towards to find different support and educational opportunities. Most chapters have an awesome Facebook page that you can find some of these events on, some pictures. If you'd like to contact any of these chapters, Cody Kemrowski is our representative, and his information is on the slide here. And he can get you in touch with chapters, or you can reach out to any of the Pheasants Forever employees as well. Next slide, please. So here we have some awesome pictures of those different services I was just referencing. This is a really cool picture of a prescribed burn that the Southeast Wisconsin chapter. Of course, any picture of a prescribed burn at night makes it look a little dramatic, but it's still a really cool picture. Most of these crews have a couple of members that are wildland firefighter type 2 certified. And that's because a lot of these board members are actually retired DNR or other natural resource profession folk that have these certifications. So here's a really cool picture. Our next picture is that seed drill that can be rented out to different landowners. Again, that's something that you would probably want to either call up a board member to learn more about that, or they might have more info on their Facebook page. And we have another picture of some habitat work on a DNR wildlife area that Pheasants Forever has helped kind of manage. In this picture, they're cutting and treating buckthorn. So you can see that guy there with a brush cutter, and behind him is a guy with a pack spray. So he probably has his herbicides license and can help out with projects like that. Next slide.
I wanted to speak a little bit on the impacts that we have here in the state. Again, we're extremely fortunate to be able to have many Pheasants Forever staff members across Wisconsin. We have 7 Farm Bill biologists, and it's a little hard to see in this map, but they're their gold stars is where their headquarters are, but we cover all of Wisconsin. We even have 2 precision egg specialists. Josh is one of them. We have another one up in the northwest. We also have 2 wetland easement biologists and a wetland easement coordinator. The wetland easement biologist, I'm down here in the southeast. We have another one up in the northwest again. We also have a regional rep and a state coordinator. In this map here on the right, you can see our impact since 2007. And so it mostly is the southern 2/3 of the state, kind of in pheasant range, but we're a habitat organization, so we're doing other projects. We got wetland projects, different farmland, conservation projects, grassland projects. There's even one wetland project way up in Douglas County on that map. So we do stuff up north. If you got projects up there, reach out to us. We're still working up there. I know RGS is up there, but that's a good partner with us. Since 2007, we've done a lot, and we're continuing to do a lot. We continue to grow. We've impacted over 115,000 private land acres for an improvement of water quality, habitat, conservation in general. That's over 12,000 different landowners that we have had contact with, either improve stuff on their property or just educate and provide assistance. We conduct a lot of different kinds of workshops, from precision ag workshops to prescribed fire stuff, just different things to engage people. And that has actually reached almost 3,500 individuals since 2007. So that's pretty cool. It shows a lot of people have interest, landowners want to get stuff done. We're a good partner to work with. We also can direct people to other partners, but we're a good middleman to get these stuff on the ground. We're continuing to grow. We have all this stuff as a goal to continue. We're going to keep growing, and it's great how we are fortunate enough to have 12 Pheasants Forever members here that can help you guys with projects. So feel free to reach out with that. Next slide.
So as the Farm Bill biologist on this training, I will talk a little bit about what that means. So in this map, you can see all the different areas that are split up among me and my coworkers. And I have the turquoise color that's down in that southeast 9 counties. And the hashed areas are the wetland easement biologists, which Jeff will talk about more in a couple of slides. So the way I like to think about my job is basically getting as much habitat on the ground as possible, whether that's working with private landowners, but we also, of course, are working with our partners at the USDA, DNR, Fish and Wildlife Service, even some smaller organizations like watershed groups. And as far as habitat goes, yes, we are supporting pheasant habitat, but we support all kinds of species as well. And usually if you're managing for one species, you're managing for several, right? So we of course are pushing for plant diversity to support pheasants, pollinators. We even support sharp-tailed grouse and greater prairie chickens, and all different kinds of habitats on these properties, whether those lands are croplands, grasslands, wetlands. We can visit somebody's property and provide some technical advice to help them identify issues they might have, such as erosion or invasive species, and help them come up with a game plan on how to either solve those solutions or just improve the diversity on their property and get some better habitat established. And after we've talked to this landowner about these different options that they have for projects, then we would present them with some different cost assistance programs that would help them along the way. And with USDA and DNR being close partners of ours, we work really closely with those offices on programs such as CRP, EQIP, wetland easements, VPA. But as I mentioned, we also work with Fish and Wildlife Service and kind of presenting some other opportunities they might offer with technical assistance or contracted work. And again, working with other local organizations like county parks and whatnot. And just to clear up a couple of things, we don't work with pheasant stalking. That's kind of one thing most people get mixed up. We try to focus all of our work on building the habitat for these different critters. And to give another example of some other outside of the box projects we might work on. For example, Josh and I are doing a presentation down in Walworth County this weekend with a group of landowners and the Kettle Marine Land Trust to educate people on grassland habitat, how to establish it, and different programs that would support that work, with the overall goal of just getting more grassland birds in the Lyons Township. So we kind of have this flexibility to work on all kinds of cool projects. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so like Jeff mentioned earlier in the training, there are 2 precision ag and conservation specialists here in the state of Wisconsin. I cover the south central southern parts, southeast part of Wisconsin. So my work as a precision ag specialist is similar to what Lauren does as a Farm Bill biologist, in that I am working to get more of this grassland-based habitat back on the landscape. But the way I approach it is a little bit different. So I tend to work more with the larger scale agricultural producers who are using precision ag technologies as part of their operation. So just some So precision ag technologies, just to give you an example of one that I commonly work with, for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with larger scale agriculture, is a combine yield monitor. So how a combine yield monitor works is as the combine goes through the field and harvests the grain, and as that grain passes through the machine, there's a sensor in the machine that measures the weight and moisture of that grain passing through the machine and provides a yield estimate. So as that combine goes through the field and makes many passes, what we end up with on that yield monitor is this nice map, this mosaic of yield variability throughout that field. And so what we're finding is that these yield maps can actually be great tools for making conservation decisions. So my role as a precision ag specialist, I'm working with these producers with their yield data, trying to target those areas of the field, looking to find those areas of the field where we are not making a profit. These are what we refer to as red acres or negative ROI acres, where the yields for whatever reason on those acres are not high enough to be profitable. And so if we have an idea of the yield, and then if we have an idea of the crop budgets, and when we work with producers, we'll work with either some estimated budget numbers or actual budget numbers to try to get an idea of profitability in the field. We get maps like you see over here on the right. This is an example from northern Wisconsin from my colleague Scott up in the Eau Claire area. And we see in this field, overall ROI was around 30%. So this field as a whole is profitable in corn production. But we can see on these fringe areas here along this tree line in the south, we have some areas that are showing up as red. Those are areas where our yields aren't high enough to be profitable. So what can we do differently in those areas to help increase overall field profitability as well as create some habitat? So we look at a couple options. Some of the programs that Lauren was mentioning in her slides are ones that I work with as well. So some various practices we can do in these areas, depending on what the producer's goals are and what can work on the landscape. Prairie and pollinator plantings are a common one. Those can provide some great habitat, and there are some cost share options available to the producer to do those practices. Buffer strips, or sometimes they're called field borders, are another option. That's what we did in this field here along this outer edge. We see this area that was that's outlined here, showing up in green. That's what Scott and this producer chose to do in this particular field in those red areas. And by doing so, increased field ROI by about 10%. So I actually kind of maybe a little counterintuitive. So we're actually maybe producing, grain on less acres, but we're actually increasing how profitable this field is. And I think there was a cost share program that was used in this case. Some of our livestock producers, they want something they can cut for hay or potentially graze. That is also something we can work in. That hay land or graze land can provide some habitat as well. Cover crops is something we're getting more into. If it can help address, those resource concerns in those areas that's leading to those low yields. Maybe it's compaction or low organic matter that's leading to those low yields. By adding a cover crop onto the landscape, we can provide some habitat, and also something that's going to be great for the soil and maybe help to increase our yields, maybe even reduce the need for inputs. All of those can provide some great habitat. Another option that's been used, becoming more and more common, adjusting inputs. So if we have the technology to maybe do some variable rate seeding or fertilizer in those areas, maybe we can increase the efficiency of our inputs in those areas more to what our expected yields are and help to be a little bit more profitable if we choose to continue to produce grain on those acres. And so the expected outcomes of this work are improved field profitability, so great for the farm business, and some great environmental benefits as well to the soil, to water, and for wildlife.
So as a wetland easement biologist, again, there's two of us in the state. We're very similar to like Lauren's position, a regular farm bill biologist, but we're more heavily focused on the Wetland Reserve Easement Program. And so if you're not familiar with Wetland Reserve Easement Program, it is a program that provides assistance if you decide that you have a restorable wetland on your property that is able to be enrolled. There's two types of easements. There's a 30-year easement and a permanent easement. And These are very popular programs. It's actually so popular that we don't have enough funds to get everybody signed up every year. But so the 30-year easement, just for example, that will have NRCS USDA will pay up to 75% of your restoration cost on your land. You still own the land. It's very popular, but what's even more surprising, our more popular ones are actually our permanent easements, which is great. That's kind of what we're looking for. That's 100% restoration cost is covered by NRCS. And then that will be in a wetland habitat forever. Even if you sell the land, move on, whatever, it's always going to be a wetland. And so that's my main focus as a wetland easement biologist. But if you're not even interested in these programs, Pheasants Forever, we have the ability to come out and provide you with technical assistance. So if you already have a wetland, like in that photo there, it's already restored, or may never was degraded at one point and is perfectly in good condition, but we can come out and help you, write up a little plan, see where your goals are, where we can manage that to improve it for wildlife, water quality, soil health. There's all these steps we can take. So it's not necessarily, you don't have to be part of the wetland easement, program. So we do some education through workshops like this. I visit landowners quite frequently, their properties, various duck clubs. I work with a lot of partners to do trainings. So I work with Ducks Unlimited, Wisconsin Waterfowl Hunters Association, Wisconsin Wildlife Federation. And we have these, days that people can come out and learn about it, and then they go to their friends, and it's kind of an ever expanding thing. Like, oh, well, he has an area that was drain tiled, and he's been drain tiled for years and keeps trying to put new tile in because the tile keeps breaking and he can't farm it anymore. So that's where we work with Josh, myself. We go out there, we figure out some options. Well, if you're losing money, wetland restoration is possible. You can, put it in an easement, some options there. You don't have to always be trying to farm something that's maybe not farmable. And so, things that I provide when I do these visits are, we can show you other programs outside of the NRCS USDA programs, cost share programs with the state, various conservation groups, some wetland management stuff. So I can help them if they're struggling with invasive species management on that wetland. I can, direct them towards, successes that would improve their quality of their goal. It's really towards the landowner goal. So we're not here to push people to sign up for a program or do whatever. We're here to help you achieve your goal. And, it's a very good program. It's relatively new in Wisconsin. Wetland easement biologists haven't been around that often. So we got 2 of them in the state. Very fortunate to have 2. Again, I'm in the southeast, and then we have another one up in the northwest. I have a 16-county area, and then up in the northwest is a 22-county work area. But those are kind of a gray area, so we can work outside of that area. It's just so these are our main wetland-focused areas in the state. So yeah, feel free to drop questions in about that towards the end. Next slide, please.
So now we have some pretty pictures for you guys to look at because everyone likes pictures. And these are different projects that we have worked on, well, at least our coworkers have worked on. So here we have a really nice picture of a very forb heavy prairie here with some tall grasses. And of course, next slide picture. Of course, we work all across the state, so we work with all. Next picture. Here we have Julie Peterson out of the Appleton office, and it looks like she's working with a landowner with some seed mixes. And one of the best parts about getting out with these landowners is helping them with plant ID and kind of showing them which ones are the good ones, which ones are the bad ones, because they're out there every day knowing how maybe invasive species are creeping in or how things are changing. So those relationships are really important. Next picture. All right, so now that I have your attention, I'd like to also talk about the Pheasants Forever Extension Women on the Wing. So this was developed to focus and provide extra support for women landowners, hunters, conservationists. because there are now more women owning land than ever before. In fact, about 1/3 of the farmland in the US is owned by women, whether that's more women purchasing property or inheriting it from family, spouses, and whatnot. Also, women is the fastest growing demographic in the hunting community. So these, these are great statistics, but we want to make sure that we provide extra support and also finding ways to make women more welcome into these conversations. And so Women on the Wing does this by, again, supporting the R3 objective of Pheasants Forever, that recruit, retain, reactivate. And they do this with different events such as Women, Wine, and Wild Game, in which women might bring different wild game that they've harvested and exchange recipes or talk about processing game. And also having different events such as mentored hunts, shooting days. We are working on a couple of our events for throughout the year, and we have one coming up soon where we're going to go visit the Aldo Leopold Shack in Baraboo. So you can look out for that event. Going to be posted soon, and maybe you have some women in your life in mind that you'd want to point towards these events. And in Wisconsin specifically, we partner with other women organizations such as Women Caring for the Land and Wisconsin Women in Conservation. And these groups have established a strategy to create better conversation, and they call this learning circles. So we find that women have best communication and education when it's peer-to-peer. So we really try to establish and create an opportunity for those conversations. And since I have your attention, and some of you might be working with women landowners, here are a couple of things to keep in mind and think about when you're working with these female landowners. The first one being that women might need a little bit more assistance when it comes to contracting work and services, maybe a little bit more assistance with looking for which services they need and which questions to ask and pointing them in the right direction, as a lot of women aren't exposed to these sorts of conversations. Also, when you are working with a woman, think of ways on how to make them more comfortable so they're more likely to ask questions. And this might be inviting one of your coworkers to tag along on the visit, or asking that landowner to bring a friend or family member. And try to avoid situations where they might be intimidated and not as likely to ask questions. For example, you don't want to ask her to hop in your truck real quick and drive to the back part of your property, where she might feel a little intimidated, a little comfortable, and you just won't get as great of a conversation going. Lastly, women are really family focused. And so when you're visiting these properties and talking about all the awesome habitat work and projects they could do, and maybe all these awesome programs they could sign up for, don't expect them to have an answer that day. Give them some time to go back and talk about all these options with their friends and family, and have some time to kind of debrief and think about all of these different things. Provide them some contacts with these groups or other women landowners that you know that have gone through these processes, to again harbor that peer-to-peer conversation where they might feel more comfortable. So just keeping these in mind, there's lots of really great resources. I put the link to the Pheasants Forever webpage, where there's all kinds of information about the Women on the Wing extension. Next slide.
So before we wrap up here today, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the current habitat campaign that we have going on right now at the national level, the Call of the Uplands campaign. Try to help raise some funds to do more of this great habitat work, both in Wisconsin and throughout the whole US. This was launched in February of 2021, so we just passed the 1 year point of Call of the Uplands. So our goals with Call of the Uplands is to raise $500 million. I apologize, I don't know right offhand how close we are to that goal. But the purpose of this $500 million is to improve 9 million acres of upland habitat. So that's both improving habitat that's already on the landscape, as well as creating some new habitat with myself, Lauren, and Jeff, the field staff, getting more of this habitat on the ground. Introducing 1.5 new people to the uplands and all the great recreational opportunities the uplands have to offer. And then permanently protect 75,000 acres of land through things like land acquisitions. And if you want to learn more about Call of the Uplands, I just provided our pheasantsforever.org landing page for Call of the Uplands. And then check out that YouTube video. And I can share these links in the chat after we're done presenting. But if you're interested, look those up. And with that, that's all we have for you today. I just want to thank you once again for taking time out of your day to tune in. I hope you got some good stuff out of this today, and you'll see Pheasants Forever as a resource, both for getting great conservation practice on the ground, as well as some outreach and education opportunities like we mentioned today. We're always out there, getting involved and talking to different groups. So yeah, keep us in mind. And I just want to shout out again our great sponsors that make our positions possible. You can see their logos there on the screen. And with that, thank you once again. And I think we'll open up the floor to any questions that we have.
Well, that's great, everyone. Thanks for sharing all those resources and what you have to offer. There was one question so far, but if anyone has any questions, you can throw them in the chat. And then I think we'll just let people open up. We have a small enough group today where we can let you unmute yourself. But first, we had a couple, and I think you mentioned this, but can you tell us again where the women-only chapters are located?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we have 2 women-only chapters. One of them is currently on hold because they formed in 2019, and well, there was a pandemic and things got stalled a little bit. So we're trying to get some of those board members back up and active, and that's in Dane County. And our other one is in the western central area. I believe that one's in Dunn County. Again, all of these chapters are also listed on the Pheasants Forever website, and we'll have some contacts available, or go ahead and message me and I can try to get you closer contacts for those if you would like.
Great. Yeah, maybe Josh, I don't know if you can go back to the first slide that had everyone's contact information on there. Maybe that would work. And I think you're going to put some links in the chat as well. We have one other question. Do you incorporate any carbon climate change factors into the outcomes of the work?
I guess I can take that question. It's something we have started looking more into, but with carbon markets, they're still pretty new, still developing. It's been more kind of, I would maybe exploratory is the right word. We just kind of, been considering it. Some of the practices we work with haven't been incorporated into carbon markets yet. Like right now, it's mostly cover crops and no-till, like restored prairie. At least the carbon markets that I've seen haven't included that yet. So as they develop and those things are included, because native prairie, with the, perennial grasses that are putting down deep roots, that's a lot, good amount of carbon sequestration. So I think those things will be worked in eventually, but they just quite aren't there yet.
Yeah, and just to kind of continue what Josh was saying, it is very new. There hasn't been much conversation about it. But one of the really nice things about our positions is that there's a lot of flexibility. So we get to kind of help experiment with some of these things and keep up with the newer sciences and learn about these things. So I definitely feel like carbon credits is going to be something that becomes a little bit more prevalent and something that we'll probably start talking about.
Great. Okay, got a couple more. So the next one will be in high deer density fields. Have you seen any yield drop within the area that a buffer goes in?
Sorry, Penny, could you repeat that question one more time?
Sure. In high deer density fields, have you seen any yield drop within the area that a buffer goes in?
Yep. So that field that I showed in my slides that was along the tree line, I think those red areas along the tree line were definitely due, and somewhat in part to deer, and then also due to shade as well. So yeah, that is something that can definitely really affect yield. And maybe by moving, one thing we talk about with landowners, maybe by moving that crop away from that tree line where it's, right up to the trees, and the deer can stand in the woods and just eat the crop, maybe moving it out so it forces the deer to go out in the open if they want to eat the crops. That can maybe help alleviate some of that deer pressure. And then as well as, if it's along a tree line, you're going to have some shading and some moisture, maybe excessive moisture as well. So that, moving away from that tree line can help with that. Will it get rid of it completely? I don't think so, but I think it'll help, reduce it some.
Okay, this next one has like 3 questions. I'm going to read them all, but if you want to attack one at a time, let's do that. Are prescribed burns completed 100% by Pheasants Forever employees and members? Are prices competitive compared to other prescribed fire contractors? Also, do you burn statewide? So the first part was, are prescribed burns completed 100% by Pheasants Forever employees and members?
So I can take this question. As far as I'm aware, most of the prescribed fires offered by these chapters are going to be chapter members, but they will ask for volunteers as well. With prescribed fire, that one's a little bit more, there's a little bit more liability to it, so it probably stays within the chapter boundaries. But as far as invasive work and running herbicide, that definitely can be extended out to volunteers. Pricing wise, I guess I'm not too sure. I imagine it's fairly competitive and they keep up with what other contractors are offering. Again, you have to remember a lot of these are just chapter run, and some of the folks are retired DNR people. And so they are doing this just because they really care about these habitats. And so the prices are going to vary depending on the chapter. And I see this last question, statewide, burning statewide. The chapters are willing to go pretty far outside their perhaps home-based counties. And we do have chapters all over the state. So I'm going to say yes, unless you're getting into those north woods where prescribed fire can get a little bit more tricky. And not all chapters offer prescribed burning services. So again, this is all very chapter dependent.
Okay, that sounds like they're going to try to work with you. And do you
Great.
have a, yes. And do you have a seeding specialist that can help select the correct seed mix for a specific site?
I guess I'll jump in here just real quick and I'll let one of you guys take it over. But it's funny because Josh and I were just having a conversation about seeding the other day. We have a great team of Pheasants Forever employees that have a knowledge and a plethora of things. So usually we kind of lean on each other for these sort of things, but we also have the connections when it comes to our partners and working with other organizations. So we usually write up our own idea of a seating list and then bounce it across a couple people's desks to see what they think. So I'm going to say we have a collective seating specialist.
And go off that, if you're, so the seed mixes that Pheasants Forever produces, they are the little seed mixes, either the state-specific ones or various food plot mixes that they have. Those are all made by a seed specialist and put together, designed for those areas, either like mesic or wet areas. And so those ones are, and then like Lauren said, we're all very knowledgeable on, site-specific locations, and so we adjust things that way. So that's what you're looking for is you can go on the website, they have that stuff, but we work with partners and other things, and we're all knowledgeable on the seed.
Super. And Britta mentioned that burns vary chapter to chapter. A lot of times it's just what they work out with the landowner, and sometimes it's just a donation lump sum to the chapter. So that goes back to like the pricing for the burns.
Yeah, so shout out to our coworker Britta Peterson on the training. She's another good contact. Her area is in that driftless southwestern portion of the state, and she's a great contact for all things Pheasants Forever.
Great. Well, Britta, if you want to throw in your contact information in the chat, you can do that as well. That's all the questions I have right now. I'm just going to open it up. If anyone wants to unmute yourself, sometimes that's easier just to ask your question directly. So does anyone have any questions for our presenters? Well, hearing none, and Britta did put in her contact information in the chat. So if you're looking for her information, it's in there along with everybody else's that presented today. I think we're going to wrap it up. I was going to mention again that this was recorded. So I will be sharing the recording with you and posting it on our website in the near future. And I wanted to thank Josh, Lauren, and Jeff so much for their presentation and giving us all this information. It was really good to hear. Sometimes you just don't realize all the variety of things that they can offer us. So thank you, everyone. Anything else that you would like to add before we end the presentation?
No, I would just like to say thanks for everyone participating, and look forward to working with you if we can in the future.
Great. And yes, it's nice to have it recorded. Then people can find this on our website or whatever, and you guys can share it as well. So people know what you're all doing for us. Okay. Well, take care, everyone. I think that's it. We're going to end it for today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.